I was telling me. Didn't really have anybody to tell me that. I was the oldest of nine. Well, I am the oldest of nine, altogether. So growing up, I grew up in North Carolina. So things like gonorrhea, chlamydia, those were things that were known, but um, nobody really talked about them. Like you take sex education in school, and they kind of breathe over them. You don't really know many people growing up that have been diagnosed with AIDS. The few people that I did know, they passed away, and there wasn't really much talked about it. So to have somebody come and say to you, you know what, value yourself, um, that's just not something that was ever spoken of. I remember my first partner, I was 14, and during that time I was going through a lot with my parents, with my mom, and being molested and dealing with that from like 6 to 13. Nobody said, value yourself, like you are more than what you've been shown you are. Because at 6 years old, I'm going to say around about 9, um, even though I didn't fully understand it then, there was this mindset that the best that I could offer somebody was my body, and in exchange they would give me love, and my life would be fulfilled, and I would be okay. And so, I entered in a relationship. I was never abused. He treated me like, oh my God. He literally gave me the world. And it was what I needed, because I didn't really receive the love from home. And, we were together for several years. And I remember moving away from my hometown because it was full of so many memories that I just wanted to get away from, so I ran. I ran in chase of happiness, my own happiness. And I moved to Greensboro, and I met someone else. And, we dated, and things were great. But, of course, he was a bit more friendlier than I was. And I can never forget the day, of how it all transpired, because, some people, they find out their status through different ways. I was hanging out with some friends. We decided we were going to go to a club. The club was having a blood mobile. And it was just outside, and nobody wanted to go. Everybody was like, because, they put up the posters and everything about HIV and AIDS. And nobody wanted to go. Nobody wanted to learn. And, my best friend, she looked and she was like, well, what is the big issue? We're just going to go in. So we did. We went together. We went in, they prick your finger, they turn around, wrap you up, tell you to give you your results. And never in a million years do you think, okay, this could be a huge turning point for me. And I want to say maybe about 2 weeks later, I'll never forget being at home and a gentleman knocking on my door. And in North Carolina, like, I don't know how it is anywhere else, but it is not as helpful when they come to your home. Like, they literally come and you're sitting there, and I remember listening to him, and it sounded almost like I was talking to Charlie Brown and his mom, because I wasn't hearing anything past your positive. Only thing I did hear was bits and pieces of sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here. And I'm like, oh my God, all the different things that they do tell you, like, potentially being jailed and in prison, because of it. Like, they don't tell you, okay, this is something that, you can live with. We have support systems available for you. There's medication that you can take. There was none of that. So being 18 years old, out on your own, supposedly the more responsible one, when it comes to your family, like your immediate family, that's not a conversation you ever anticipate having. And I struggled for a long time. I remember when my partner, at the time when he came home, I was sitting on my patio, and I was crying. I cried for hours. I thought my life was over. I thought that I could die literally at any moment. And I remember him coming home, and he asked me, it was like, what's wrong? And I couldn't even tell him. I couldn't even look at him. And the crazy part is most of my friends, after the fact, they were like, well, you should be upset with him. And I never was. I was upset with myself because, granted, yes, there was some responsibility that he had. But with respect to myself, there was a greater responsibility that I had to myself, and I didn't value myself. Um, because again, like I said, I learned early on as a kid, it was like my exchange was, I give you my body, you give me love, and we'll live happily ever after. And then, I was stuck with, okay, now you have this other piece that's now added into the equation. Now what do you do? And so, I did like what most people would do. I stayed with the one that I got it from. It seemed the easy way out. I didn't have to worry about anybody loving me because where you gonna go? You did this to me. Like, how dare you turn around and even talk about it, you want to leave? Like, that was not a conversation we were having. It wasn't until years later when I got a job offer to relocate me to Florida. And I truly, looking back on that, I honestly believe that was God's way of letting me out of that situation because I didn't have the strength, the courage, the mind. I just didn't. I didn't. And I went downhill. Like, on the outside, I was happy, Chris. I was very positive. I've always been a positive person, always there for somebody else, but then in the moments when I would sit in a room by myself, I would sit and be so angry with myself, upset with myself. And so it did. It opened up a deep, dark, downward slope that it was only by the grace of God that, like, literally I lived through a lot of it. Because I did. I remember when I met my partner in Florida, the first thing that I told him, because he tried to talk to me, and I was in this mindset, like, look, I don't want to deal with anybody. I don't want anybody trying to talk to me. You don't love me. You don't care about me. Look at what's happened. And he did. He kept trying. And I remember telling him one day, this was even before we started dating, I was like, I'm positive. I just knew then he was going to be like, all right, deuces, I'm good. And he didn't. He was like, oh, okay. You do know that there's ways to, live with this. And even then, I was still stuck on this angry mode. So I was like, oh, whatever. You just tell me what I want to hear. And it took a while, but he did. He broke me down. And we were together. And it maybe like the first year, everything was okay. And then that's when a lot of stuff started happening. And mind you, I was away from my family. I didn't have any friends. So again, I stayed. I went to what I knew best. I was like, okay, well, you know what? I give out. You're going to give out. You're going to tell me that you love me. I'm going to act like I believe it. We're going to be happy. And life is going to be grand. And this is how we're going to live. And there was moments of abuse. And in dealing with that and having to face the fact of the matter that I was with somebody that I wanted to love me, and they didn't love me. And then I thought about, mind you, I have parents that they never once, in all the years I lived in Florida, they never once came down there to visit, to check on me, none of that. So dealing with that and everything else, I just got to a place, I remember one day he and I had gotten to this really bad argument, and I just literally wanted everything to be over. My head was pounding. I was crying, I was upset. I literally walked from like one side of the city all the way over to our house. And once I got home, the only thing I wanted to do was go to sleep. And I tried to sleep, and I couldn't sleep. And I remember going into the bathroom, I can't remember, they were like Tylenols or something. And so I took them, trying to get my head to stop hurting so I could turn around and so I could go to sleep, and that wasn't working. And we had like the big bottle, this was back in the day when they sold the big family-size bottle of NyQuil. And I was like, oh, okay, well, when I have a cold, this kind of makes me drowsy, makes me go to sleep, so I'll take some of this. Not thinking, because mind you, I was not thinking clearly. I was not looking at myself and saying, Christopher, value yourself. Like, what are you doing? You're really about to cause some harm to yourself. And I ended up drinking like more than half the bottle. When he found me, I was unresponsive. I was laid out on the bed. And many people have talked about out-of-body experiences, and it's so crazy because even now, years later, I still literally sit there. Like, I was able to tell him certain things that were happening to me, and he could not understand because he was like, Christopher, you was not responding to them. I remember there was a paramedic. She had blonde hair, beautiful blue eyes, and she just kept telling me, we're going to get you through this. They tried to use the salt thing to try to um, bring me back. They used a defibrillator to try to shock me, and they did all that they could in my house. And once they figured out that there was nothing else they could do, they transported me to the hospital. And I was there for quite some time. And I'll never forget, my dad somehow or another found out I was at the hospital. Now, mind you, for the time that I was there, I was laying in a bed, not responsive. And my father called. And before the phone actually rang, I picked up the phone. And my best friend CJ was sitting at the end of my bed. And he was crying, and everybody's crying, and the nurses are coming in. I'm trying to have a conversation with my dad because I'm like, get me out of this hospital. Like, what is going on? So it did. And then a day came where I said, you know what? It's time. I don't have to deal with this. I won't deal with this because this is not going to be my life. And I did. I packed up and I left. And it was a journey. It still is a journey. But to lose yourself and find yourself again and have to rebuild yourself back up, your self-esteem, being able to love yourself even through everything that you've allowed yourself to go through, it's tough. It's tough. But I sit now at almost 33, and I'm proud to look back and say, you know what? It's been tough, but I'm making it. And not only that, but I've come into contact with so many people that have no idea my story, and yet they tell me how I inspire them, and how, you know, they look at me and they know about the HIV because it's not anything I hide in me. Hello, it's something like I do. So I would rather tell you than you walk in my bathroom and see a bottle and then ask me about it. But it is. It's just, and there's been times where I sit and I'm like, Lord, like, why me? You picked me to turn around and carry this out. Like, you could have picked somebody else because I've done some stuff. Like, you know, we have conversations now as adult black males, especially in the gay world, where, you know, you get asked questions like, oh, like, for example, somebody posted today, do you prefer love over sex? And quite naturally, everybody's all love. And I'm like, oh. So, you know, I responded, and I'm really adamant about walking in and owning my own truth and being transparent, because in order for me to be effective in the life of somebody else, they need to know that I'm being honest with them in all aspects, because I can't turn around and tell you, you know, to stay strong, to make sure you're adhering to your appointments and taking your medications on time, and I'm not doing it. For somebody, like, for example, when I used to mentor, a lot of my mentees used to tell me about, you know, but I don't want to take it. It makes me have bad dreams, or, you know, it makes my body hot. Well, I'm that person that's going to tell them, I know that. I've been there. Trust me. I remember the nightmares. I remember the cold sweats, well, the hot sweats, or whatever you want to call it, but I remember them. And it is tough. But you have to, you know, love yourself enough to do what you need to do to take care of you. And like I said, you know, when it came to questions like that, I was honest, because this is the platform that I built for myself. And I explained to him, like, at one point in time, it was definitely love I was searching for. Now, over the last several months, it's slowly transitioned into sex, and I don't even know where that came from, because I've always been very adamant about love and, you know, the family and being married and having children and all of that, and that hasn't gone. It's just not the first thing I think now. Like, now I meet a guy and it's like, oh, okay, let's cut to the bull crap. When you're trying to get in bed, either it's going to be good or it's not. Either you're going to speak afterwards or you're not. That's just kind of what is present right now. And I know that I'm not the only person that's dealing with that. But so many times we get into conversations in groups and we get so focused on, oh, well, I can't really tell people that, you know, I like raw sex versus, you know, using condoms, which I know I'm supposed to protect myself, but, you know, people aren't honest like that. And it's like, well, why not? How can you really help somebody if you're not honest with yourself? So that's where I'm at now in my life. Yeah. It's a lot. Sorry for the emotions.
No. It's amazing that you're able to articulate that and share that, even like
Absolutely. One is learning to love myself. Above all things, learning to love myself, and I encourage people to do the same thing. Um, and then getting to a place where I can accept my flaws and my mistakes. And not saying that you make excuses for them and you just become one of those people that's like, oh, well, this is me, so this is how I'm going to live my life. But you acknowledge them, and then you start setting plans to change them, to better yourself. Um, because the person that you are today does not have to be the person that you are tomorrow. But the one person that can change that is you. And that's what I tell people. Um, I have people that are close to me now, and they're always going through something. And I tell them oftentimes, I said, you know what, you only have one or two choices. Everything else really doesn't matter. You have one or two choices. You either choose to live or you choose to let go and allow whatever to happen, happen. And if you choose to live, then you have to start making the appropriate steps to make certain that you're staying on that track. And a part of that, especially for someone who um, is living with HIV, is making certain that you're doing everything that you can within your power to, one, protect yourself, two, protect others. Also, making sure that you're honest with your doctors. I work in the medical field, and you'll be amazed at how many people try to come and tell their doctors, bull crap. And like, we see your chart. We know what's going on. We see your levels, your vitals. We see all of that. So if you're experiencing something, tell us. Because the rash that you are just saying, oh, well, this is just some little skin discoloration. No, that could be something like your medication. You may be having an allergic reaction to your medication. It may be an antibiotic, that's conflicting with your actual day-to-day medication. These are things that, you need to be honest about. So I tell people, I'm like, be honest with your doctors. If you don't like taking the medication, that's the person you tell. Tell them. I mean, there's so many other medications that are out here. Not saying that we're just going to try you, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you find the one that's going to be most effective for you. And then you stay on it. You don't just turn around and go a year and then, I don't like the way it makes me feel. Like, I have my gay son, which I love to death, and that's his biggest thing. I don't like the way it makes me feel. Well, guess what? Don't take it. You have two choices. Life or whatever else. And if you decide this, like I tell him, don't think that I'm going to be mad. Just know that, if it ends and you pass, then I have to be at peace with the fact of the matter. This is a choice that you made for your life. I would have wanted it to be different, but I don't have the power to make your choice for you. You have to make it be your choice. I've seen too many people that I've worked with, encountered, and they have allowed the choices that other people would make for them to become their choices, and they're so unhappy. They're so unhappy. And they tell you, I'm not doing this because I want to. I'm doing it because my mom wants me to. I'm not doing this because I want to. I'm doing this because I think my family wants me to do this. And they're so unhappy. And so I'm like, why don't you do what you want to do? Be happy. Let that be your choice. These are things that I do on a daily basis that I try to impart into other people because, again, I'm not going to say my journey has been a struggle, but it's definitely been a journey. It definitely has been a journey. And, I've had people come to me and ask, if you could go back to that day when you were laying down wherever you were at and, you contracted HIV, would you change it? At first, I almost said yes. There was a point where I almost said yes. Today, I wouldn't. Because I now have a story that is none other than any other story out there. And through the years, God has allowed me to share that with so many other people. I have literally had people come back to me and tell me, you know what, before I met you, and mind you, these are total strangers. Before I met you, I was thinking about killing myself. And I'm like, we met at the bus stop. All I did was have like a 5-minute conversation with you. And it wasn't even about, you being depressed. Like, we were literally talking about something random. And they were like, no, it was just something about you. Like, you just have this peace, this joy about you that made me feel like, there's more that I need to be fighting for. And so I woke up today and I said, I'm going to fight. People don't understand. I'm an emotional person as it is, but when you tell me something like that, it's it's like wow, to be able to mentor people, in the manner that I have, and be able to sit down and really explain things to them, you know, um, it's different when you can look at somebody and you can say, you know what, I know what you're going through. I know how you're feeling. Um, I get it and I understand it's different than someone who may have went to school and became educated. And so they tell you all the things that the books tell them is right. But you can't tell this to somebody who is afraid to go home because they have issues with their parents. So they stay out in the street. And now you're asking the same individual to go to a doctor's appointment and they're trying to figure out where they're going to eat. Or, tell this individual, hey, you need to be taking your medication. And they're like, well, I don't even know where to put my bottle because the only thing I have is my shirt and my pants. Like, so being able to sit and speak to people in that manner, granted, I've never had to live on the street, thank God. But I know what it's like to go through and be in a situation that you're like, no, this is uncomfortable. I don't. I know what it's like to wake up one day and say, you know what, I know I'm supposed to be taking this medicine. I don't feel like it. I know what it's like to wake up in the middle of the night and say, you know what, I'm done with doing all this altogether. Like, Lord, whatever you do in my sleep, handle your business. Just make sure I'm not up in the morning. Take care of mom and dad and all my brothers and sisters. Be with them because I'm tired. I get it. So when I speak to that individual, I'm not just telling them something that I've been trained to tell them. I'm speaking from my heart. And I've seen that be the most effective. Right now I have a mentee. He had left and went to New York. I lost contact with him for several years. And via social media, we reconnected about a year ago. And the first thing I asked is, how are you doing? And he told me, he said, you know what? There was a point in time where I was doing really, really bad. And then he said there were days when he would think to himself, if I could get back to Chris, like, would he be proud of where I'm at right now? Because I did. I was tough. I didn't play the whole, no, we're not going to no. I would take off work and go and pick him up, and my boss would turn around and tell me that, like, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to meet with them. And I'm like, no, I can't be a mentor to somebody if I'm not really helping them. I would turn around and go and pick him up from bus stations. Sometimes he hadn't eaten. I would do those things, but I told him, I'm like, look, I don't mind doing any of this for you, but you have to do something for yourself. All that I ask is you adhere to your appointments. You make sure that you're taking your medication on a day-to-day basis. Everything else, we'll work it out. I'll work it out with you. And when we reconnected, he told me, it was like, my viral load is undetectable. I'm taking my medication every day. I got my own apartment. I got a great job. He was like, and I appreciate you for being who you were for me. And here I am, I thought to myself, I'm like, I'm just a little boy that grew up in Albemarle, North Carolina, that made a lot of mistakes. And I've been favored through all of them. But, now I take this more serious because I could have been like many people. Like I said, my first love, I buried him October the 11th, 2014 because he gave up. My best friend of 19 years. And it was tough, but it was his choice. And, when you have a bond with somebody that long and that strong, it may not have been the choice that you wanted them to make, but it was his choice and he was at peace. And I was okay with that. So it has definitely been a journey. And the things that I mentioned, those are tools that I try to implement on a day-to-day basis in my life. And when I speak to people, those are things that I try to share with them. Because this isn't easy all the time. You really have to fight for your own sanity and fight for your own inner peace. Because you have so many people in the world that have no idea what you're dealing with. And all of a sudden they become, experts on HIV and treatment and what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. We're afraid to turn around and say, hey, look, I do have HIV, and I'm very successful, and I'm a black gay male, and I'm not a statistic. Like, granted, I may fall in this category, but I'm far from what you're trying to portray me out to be. Um, People look at you and, you say HIV and they go nasty. Whoa, wait a minute. I'm not nasty. I mean, I granted I had an unfortunate situation that happened. Am I upset about it? Absolutely not. Life goes on. But there's so many things so many different titles that people peg on you without even knowing your first name. And it's crazy, so it becomes challenging. So you have to fight to get to a place where you can look at people and you can say, you know what, this is what I'm dealing with. This is how my life is, and this is how I'm moving forward. Um, and it's just amazing at how I'm going through, which I think is like nothing. How it is so inspiring and impactful and just uplifting so many other people.
Is that one of the reasons you chose to go into the medical field?
It is. I have a heart. I love helping people. And
sorry.
sure.
Before you answer that, give me a clap.
I clap.
Thank you.
But yes, I chose to go into the medical field because I have a passion and a heart to help people.
Wait, I'm sorry, stop. Did you hear that?
Yeah, what's going on?
Someone in the elevator. Great. So, what compelled you to go into the medical field?
My passion for helping people is what has motivated me to go into the medical field. I've always been a person that most of what I've done has been to help someone in some way, shape, or form. But now I look at it and I'm like, what greater way can I be of assistance to someone than helping them with their health? A healthy body, healthy life, healthy being. So I've infused the two, the understandings that I have about HIV, both from a personal level and a professional and educated level, as well as, what I've learned from the actual medical field and, communicating with the doctors and the nurses and things like that and being behind the scenes. I've infused the two, and now I've learned more, so now I can be more effective in somebody else's life. And instead of just telling you, hey, you should really stick to your appointments with your doctor, I can speak to you and say, hey, first let's talk about, do you have an infectious disease doctor? Oh, great, you don't, so we need to get you connected to one. And I'm certified through the state of Maryland through the Affordable Care Act. So when people say, well, I don't have insurance, so I can't go to a doctor. Oh, actually you do, because we can sit down and we can fill out the application and help you through that. So, but yeah, that's why. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's a beautiful thing seeing people, go through surgeries and then come out and you're able to put a smile on their face. Or, being upset about having to be in the hospital for several days or weeks. And, being able to come in and them looking forward to you actually coming into the room because they know that you're going to bring them this joy that they need. And then just, people knowing that you have a passion to really be there for them. And when you say, I'm going to do everything in my power to help you out, they don't doubt it for 1 minute because they feel it. And they know that you're just not telling them something to make them feel good.
Is that something you would have told your younger self? You're gonna move past this. You're going to move on to be a beacon for other people.
Today, yes. Today, I would look at my younger self and say, you know what? It is tough. Keep your head in the game. You're going to get through this. You are going to get through this. You're going to soar. You're going to be amazing. And you're going to empower and impact lives. You're going to change lives. But you have to get through this. You have to allow yourself to get through this. Years before, I don't know if I was strong enough to tell my younger self that. Because then it would have been like my younger self and my younger self and both of them confused about which direction they want to take it, their life in. More so, do they even want to live?
Right.
Sure.
I'm putting you through the ringer, so thank you so much.
No problem. No problem.
So Christopher, think back to that. You painted a really, really important moment in your life for us on that patio when you first found out you're dealing with it like you should have.
Right.
If you could be on that patio with Christopher then, what would you tell him?
For the first few moments, honestly, I wouldn't say anything because I know now what he needed was a hug. He just needed a hug. He didn't need anybody to say it's gonna be all right. Like he just needed a hug. He needed genuine love in that moment. Um, but as the time would pass, and I would say something to him, I would let him know you are not alone in this. Don't you ever think that for one day. You have a support system around you that is building literally on a daily basis. And these people care about you. So don't you for once think that you are alone in this. You are going to soar through this like never before. But you have to allow your journey to be your journey. Don't take any shortcuts. Don't try to move too fast. Allow your journey to be your journey because there's some lessons that you're going to learn that is going to be very useful for you in the future. That's what I would tell them. That's what I would tell myself.
Beautiful. The other thing you said that I really liked is that you made it clear that being transparent and being honest was your left and right hook. How would you tell your younger self the importance of being transparent and honest? If you start with, I would tell myself, or Christopher, or however you want to address your younger self.
Wow, that's an interesting question. It's interesting because for me to have gotten to that place, it was a journey that sometimes I didn't even want to take. And so right now to sit and try to answer that question, I honestly have no idea what I would tell my former self. Because looking back at that moment, he's so young and he's so vulnerable. Like asking him to develop himself early on into this transparent person, dealing with the stigma and dealing with, everything that he was dealing with. That's a lot. That's a lot because what that means is you literally have to allow yourself to stand in the middle of a roaring crowd with rocks and stones and everything else in their hands. And you not knowing what's going to happen. They could walk away. Some of them could throw them things. You have no idea. And it's a lot. That's a lot. It takes time to develop the courage to be able to stand in that crowd and not bat an eyelash. Like now, I'm like, what's the worst that somebody could say to me? It's all been said before, but again, it's been a journey, so I don't know how I would be able to tell him that. Prayerfully, a day will come and I'll be able to tell him that.
That was a beautiful answer in itself. Yeah, that's all I covered it. Is there anything else you'd like to tell your younger self, Christopher?
To Christopher, life is definitely a journey. That is something that is going to be consistent. And it's okay that you've made some mistakes. It's okay. It's even better that you made the mistakes and you've learned. So, continue to stay focused, continue to be the person that you are, the spirit that you are. Learn to forgive yourself before you become 33. Learn to forgive yourself because you're an amazing man. I've never told myself that. You're an amazing man. But that would be it. That would be it. Wow. never told myself that. This is so crazy. This is so crazy.